Thank you everyone for being here today. This is the first ever informational session for Citizens Climate International. I'm very excited. Before you start, could you please put your country and your name in the chat box? And I see most of you have done this. The agenda is introductions, overview of Citizens Climate International, carbon pricing basics, the CCL way, and lobbying 101. I am your host today. I am Canadian and I work as my name is Kathy Orlando and I work as the program director at Citizens Climate International. This session is specifically for Southeast Asia, and I'm happy to see my colleagues from Southeast Asia here on the call. So I would like to give you each a moment to say hello, your name and your country, and just a little brief why you're here today, 1 or 2 sentences. So Rituraj, we'll start with you, and then we'll go around India, and then we'll jump over to Dhaka, if that's okay.
Thank you, Kathy. And my name is Rituraj Phukun, and I'm based out of Assam in the northeast of India. And I have been with CCL trying to organize it in India since about 3 years now, and working with Kathy and the whole bunch of people as the national coordinator for CCL India at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Vishal Gupta from New Delhi, and I'm the chapter lead for Delhi and been with CCL for around 1.5 years now. And I'm handling the national training and volunteer management. That's it. Thanks.
Rashi?
Hi, my name is Prashi Gargo, and I'm from India, but at the moment I am in UK, London, doing my master's here. So I like how CCL promotes what they do and the way of doing it. So that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. And to our colleagues in Bangladesh.
Hi everyone, my name is Galib. Actually, my full name is Mohammad Galib Hussain. I have done a master's on environmental science, and in CCL I had joined in 2020. Actually, my joining date is 1st January 2020. And after a few months, I had a communication with Kathy and came in focus. I am the group leader of Dhaka, BJD Dhaka chapter. Actually, here has two chapters. And I'm here because of in Bangladesh also, we are very concerned about the climate. So we want to work for something regarding the climate. And I have my colleague here, I mean, the same team, request him to reintroduce them.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mahabub. My full name is Mahabub Alam Mundol. Basically, yeah, Mr. Galib and me, we are living in the same house. For the reason we are, we have joined meeting in the same times. He's living in the 2nd floor. I live in 4th floor. Yeah. Really, Mr. Galib has introducing the CCL and why the CCL we are joining here. The CCL is doing to work the carbon emission, and also I'm a student of the environmental science. For the reason I have joined here, and basically in my country I'm doing job here to as a media, how to increase the member for CCL and such kind of things. Thank you.
Shukriya, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so our learning objectives here today are to gain a better understanding of Citizens Climate International, understand and highlight the benefits of carbon pricing, and articulate our core values and our 5 levers of building political will. I encourage you to explore our website, citizensclimateclimate.earth. Our solution to climate change is people. We changed it to people because many of our colleagues live in countries where democracy is challenged. So they felt it was better to start at the people. And we need you on our team. So thank you for being here today. Our founder is Marshall Saunders. I wish you all could have met him. He died in December of 2019. He was someone who was really concerned about poverty. He spent a lifetime, most of his adult life, working for various programs to help eradicate poverty. Most specifically, he worked on creating microloans, mostly for women in Central America, to help lift them out of poverty. And when he saw the movie An Inconvenient Truth in 2006, he realized that climate change was going to undo a lot of the good work that had been done. He was one of the first hundreds of people that were trained by Al Gore and Climate Reality. After giving about 100 presentations, he realized asking people to change light bulbs was not enough. He realized that ordinary people like me and you would have to organize, educate ourselves, give up our hopelessness, and gain the skills to be effective with our governments. Very generous man. He founded Citizens Climate Lobby in 2007, and we are part of that organization. Outside the USA, there are over 130 chapters, and we're almost have 200,000 supporters around the world. And we're very focused on carbon pricing, so that's a really good number. And we are found in over 60 countries. The division of Citizens Climate International was created in September of 2017 and became a legal entity just in January of this year. And just like our mothership, we create the political will for a livable world by empowering individuals to have breakthroughs in exercising their personal power. We're people power driven. We have two areas of primary work that are of interest today. We empower citizen volunteers to build political will for a livable world. And we facilitate citizen climate engagement in the international process. This is a very important year. There are strong moments in 2021 to influence climate policy. On Earth Day and Friday, April 23rd as well, the US of A, Joe Biden, the president, will be having a leaders summit on climate. And we anticipate a lot of announcements to be made and things to start to shift really quickly. Our colleagues in the USA, along with many climate leaders, have been working towards this. There's also the G7, which is hosted by England, the United Kingdom this year, and of which India is a special guest, as well as South Africa, Korea, and Australia. And you should all know that we've been working behind the scenes at the G7 since 2017 when I was hired. As well, in the UK is also the host of COP26, and it will be happening in Glasgow, November 1st to November 12th. And really of interest to us is the final rules for Article 6 in the Paris Agreement, which is the carbon pricing rules. And one major thing we're trying to do this year is distill up to our governments and down into the grassroots the importance of carbon pricing in our countries across the planet. And there's also the G20, which we will be working on soon. I don't have much to report. First, it's the G7, and then we skip over to the G20. That's usually how it works. And the G20 meetings will take place right before the COP26 So COP26 is November 1st to November 12th. The big G20 meeting is the week before, and the G7 meetings are in June. So that's that. Now we move on to carbon pricing. If you're working on carbon pricing, these are my go-to documents. The Climate Action Tracker. It tells us how each country is doing with regards in their nationally determined contributions and policies that are creating policies that are reducing greenhouse gas emissions. As you can see here, India is doing quite well, and I don't think Pakistan or Bangladesh are listed there, but I know your countries are probably doing well as well, because we tend to have larger carbon footprints in the global north to begin with. So it's a really good source to find out where many of the countries and how they're doing. Another go-to document for us is the World Bank Carbon Pricing Dashboard. And we currently 22.3% of the global GHG emissions are covered by initiatives, and 46 national jurisdictions have carbon pricing initiatives. And they're all listed here. And you can click on them and find out what those carbon pricing policies look like at the national level. There are also subnational government initiatives as well. As you dive deeper into this work, the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition, the work they do is really important. And we, along with Canada and about 30 other countries, are founding, and a lot of NGOs and a lot of businesses are founding members of the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition. The major railways in India are part of the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition. I know that, but your country is not. And I don't think Bangladesh nor Pakistan are part of it as well. And because this particular session is focused on Southeast Asia, that's why I'm citing those statistics. Every year in about June, the World Bank produces what's called the States and Trends of Carbon Pricing in 2020. So they review the nationally determined contributions that will be submitted in April, or later this month, to the United Nations, and they distill it. And we know that 97 countries have carbon pricing in their nationally determined contributions. And lastly, there was this really exciting global survey that took place in January, that was released in January, and 64% of global citizens believe, in 50 countries, believe that we're in a climate emergency. So we've got political will on our side. And you can dig down into those documents and get the statistics for your own country. And note that there will be a PDF presentation that will have these links as active. So as we said, we are focused on carbon pricing. Many countries do not price carbon pollution, but you are paying. You're paying through the climate damages, and you are also paying for insurance premiums that are going up if you have insurance on your homes and businesses. There's regulation. People often don't think of that as carbon pricing, but the government has to put money into regulating various parts of our economy. So they have to create the rules, and then they have to monitor, and they have to enforce. And all that takes government resources. So it is a way of pricing carbon pollution. There are important regulations that are needed within the climate movement. For example, our colleagues in Nigeria would really like for the Nigerian government to regulate gas flares. They want that to stop. There's car regulations, stuff like that. But to regulate the entire economy would be hugely expensive. Another way to price carbon pollution is through cap and trade. So governments can put a cap on emissions, and then businesses can trade. If they go over the cap, they can trade those emissions with those who are under the cap, or they can also offset. That system is getting better, but in terms of how it can be monitored and stuff like that, but it's still very complex. It's hard to follow, and it's hard to explain to the people. We're not against it. I just want to be clear about that, and it will be necessary. Yeah, that's about all I'll say to that. The government can impose a carbon tax, take that revenue and do with it as they wish, but most people don't like to pay taxes, and actually paying taxes is taking money out of the economy, and that in itself is regressive and can actually hurt people and hurt the economy. So this is carbon taxes have to be treated, they have to be designed very well if they're to work in a country, so as not to hurt people or the economy. What we at Citizens Climate Lobby advocate for is climate income, or also known as carbon fee and dividend. And I can explain it in 3 sentences. Put a fee on carbon pollution at the source, give the money back equally to the citizens, the country, and then include border carbon adjustments to protect domestic industries from unfair competition and prevent leakage of businesses out of the country to go to countries where there are no carbon pricing, and to encourage the rest of the world to price carbon pollution. That's climate income. Fee at the source, so the well, the mine, or as the fossil fuel or highly intensive carbon product crosses the border, put a fee on it, give the money back to the people, and include border carbon adjustments. You're all nodding because it's so simple. But what does it do? Well, it will save lives. A March 2020 a peer-reviewed article in the Journal of Cardiovascular Research estimated that in 2015, the deaths of more than 3.6 million people worldwide could have been avoided if air pollution from fossil fuels was reduced to 0. That's just the fossil fuel pollution. We're not even talking climate impacts and food impacts. It puts money in your pocket. The money collected from the carbon fee is given as a monthly dividend. It's called climate income or carbon cashback payment to every person to spend with no restrictions. And most low and middle income people will come out ahead, or at least break even. And I'll show you some data from Canada shortly. Many countries are now on, and businesses are on the task of getting to net zero by 2050. Climate income is the single most powerful tool we have to get to net zero by 2050. And most of us come out ahead. We get more money back. Lastly, we all want a clean energy future, and we all want to see this happen. And with this policy, the government sets the direction and the businesses respond in order to provide abundant, affordable, and reliable clean energy. This clean energy innovation will drive us faster towards net zero pollution. So in summary, it's effective. There's plenty of economic data that it will reduce emissions in a timely way. I don't want to info bomb you, but I have it if you need it. It's good for the people. It will save lives. It will clean the air, and it will reduce the impacts of climate change. It's good for the economy. It's actually good for local economies because it circulates money locally. Not doing enough for the climate will be devastating for the economy. It's nonpartisan. It has something in here for all on the political spectrum. Libertarians will like it because it makes polluters pay. Conservatives will like it because it doesn't grow government, and it uses a market solution. People in the center or progressives will like it because it kind of balances it all out. And people on the left will tend to like it because it reduces income inequality. And lastly, all of us will like it because it's revenue neutral, and the government is not taxing us per se, because we're getting the money back. So your next question, is it working anywhere in the world? And yeah, Canada. Da, da, da. That's us a week before it was announced that Canada would be adopting a carbon fee and dividend policy as our backstop policy. And if you look at Canada's major policy for reducing greenhouse gases, which is called the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, carbon pricing is the biggest component of it. And without it, our emissions would actually go up between 2018 and 2022. And like I said, I would show you data that it reduces income inequality and most people come out ahead. These are the various provinces in Canada. This is data for 2019, 2020, and this is data for 2022, 2023. The data is coming from the official Parliamentary Budget Office, which is basically the accountant for all fiscal policies for Canada. And you see most people come out ahead. So in Alberta and Saskatchewan, over 80% of people, and then in Ontario and New Brunswick and Manitoba, nope, just Ontario and New Brunswick, it is the bottom 2/3 of people come out ahead. Even at the highest payment people will make at the end of 2022 in the highest income quintile, it's only $200 Canadian, which is the equivalent of a fancy cup of coffee per week. And I think people making a couple $100,000 a year can afford the equivalent of a fancy cup of coffee per week. Why is this so? Why does it, distribute this way? That's because we have extreme carbon inequality. The richest 10% of people are responsible for almost half of all total lifestyle consumption, and the poorest 50% are responsible for only 10%. And if you dig deeper into this data, and all I have is for the G20, but thankfully India is part of that, so you can see it. I'm sorry, I do not have Bangladesh or Pakistan. But you will see the top 10%, which is this green bar, always consume way more than average, which is this dark bar. So if you look for India, that's your top 10%. There's your average. And the people in the lowest, bottom 50% and bottom 40% consume way less than average. So they probably would come out ahead in a carbon fee and dividend policy. And it holds consistent right across the planet, these G20 countries, because income distribution is pretty much the same in every country, give or take a couple percentage points. If you go dig down into the data, not a couple, maybe about 5 percentage points, but how it distributes is generally the top 20% earners are, have a lot more income than the rest of the country across the world for the most part. So excitingly, in December, my country introduced a new plan, and it's called the Healthy Environment and Healthy Economy. And they improved on the carbon pricing policy. Originally, it was going to stop at 2022 at $50 a ton, but in this plan, it will extend all the way up to 2030, where it would be $170 Canadian per ton by 2030, or which is the equivalent of 130 USD or 112 euros. This was announced on December 12th. They're starting to study border carbon adjustments. They're going to give us quarterly payments now, as opposed to one payment a year. So many Canadians will start receiving these regular payments from the government. And happily, they're starting to study border carbon adjustments. And on March the 4th, the Permanent Mission of Canada, the WTO, had an expert panel on border carbon adjustments. If Canada, in this plan that we have, does exactly what they say they're going to do, which is all those policies plus border carbon adjustments, Canada will exceed our Paris target by 206%. This data is the same whether it's from Canadians for Clean Prosperity, and it's pretty similar for the Parliamentary Budget Office. That's how powerful carbon pricing, in combination with other policies, is, but carbon pricing is doing most of the heavy lifting. And on March 10th, the European Union lawmakers voted by a wide margin to support the development of border carbon adjustments, which they call carbon border adjustment mechanisms, or CBAMs, in the EU, and those will be enacted by January of 2023. And just last week, the US of A, I think, yeah, the largest number of congresspersons reintroduced the Energy and Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. So it's moving again through Congress. This takes time, but carbon pricing is on the table in the US of A. So any questions about carbon pricing before we take the last 10 minutes to just run through how we do things at CCL? I've got very smart people on the line with me right now. They know all this stuff. So our mission is to build the political will for a livable world. And we do that by empowering people to have breakthroughs and exercising and their personal and political power. We have one rule and one rule only: respect, admiration, and gratitude. Our methodology, it's all about relationships. So a lot of respect and appreciation, it gets us in the door. We appeal to the best in others. We know there's good in everyone, and we are for carbon pricing. That's why this is taking so long. It's much harder to be for something than against something.
Catherine, I have one question, please.
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
If you allow me. I want to know regarding the carbon emission, your country giving dividend to the people, those are not emissioning the carbon. You had a slide here, regarding the border. That means another country, how they will do something for another country.
Okay, right now we don't have border carbon adjustments. What we have is what's called, it's complex, it's called the output-based carbon pricing system. So our heavy emitters are under a different sort of system than the rest of the economy. So about 70% of our economy's consumption is through the people. And then about 30% overall, maybe it's more like 5% actually. It is under a different, no, it is 30% because it takes in steel and chemicals and all sorts of other industries. They're under a different policy. It's called output-based carbon pricing in Canada. It's like cap and trade, but it's without a cap. And instead of having a cap, there are, I think, 11 or 12 industries, and they're all slotted into various categories. And then if they meet the benchmark in their category, they don't, for CO2 emissions, they don't pay a price. If they're below it, they actually get a credit. And if they go above it, they have to pay. And what's unfortunate about it is they give a lot of exemptions. There's a lot of exemptions where there's just absolutely no paying. They're like, oh, you can wait 5 years. So it needs a lot of work. And ultimately, we'd like that replaced with border carbon adjustments and just have an economy-wide single carbon price. Because even if when they are paying that carbon price, Galib, they're paying like just a portion of it. So instead of paying $20 a ton, they're paying somewhere between $2 to $3 a ton when they go over, which is minuscule. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I got it.
Wonderful. And I'm not seeing what's happening in the chat. So if anybody wants to help with that would be great. Did somebody say anything? Okay. And keep in mind that Canada's backstop policy is the federal standard, but provinces are free to choose whichever way they want to do it. So for example, in a country like Bangladesh or India, like Bangladesh has all those districts and India has all those states, you know, your country could set a standard and then your districts or states could meet that standard in any way they wish. And if they don't make it, then the government imposes their policy on them. And I think that's a role model for many countries that are like Canada, that are just more than one people, like one entity, where we're a confederation or a conglomeration of many peoples, or many states or districts or provinces or whatever you want to call them. Okay, Any more questions?
Yeah, I'd like to add a few things, Kathy.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, so a friend from Bangladesh, you asked about the border carbon adjustments. Also, we would like you to assess the kind of damage which carbon is doing to you, so that you can have a strategy of carbon pricing for Bangladesh. I'm not sure if your government already has a white paper, but India does have. If you wish, you can take a lead as a CCL member and use that as a template and maybe suggest. I'm sure there would be experts there. And also you could, let's say for India, I have read that it is $80 billion of damage, okay, due to carbon emissions in terms of health effects, in terms of additional infrastructure required. And there is a study which says that we can recover this 80 billion if we are able to capture carbon. And this 80 billion comes back to us. So if somebody says that I'm investing 80 billion, so that's a loss. No, it's not a loss, because that 80 billion will offset the current 80 billion loss. So that is the study. Plus, we also would have heard about other carbon capture technologies which are coming up, and another area which developing nations like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan would moving forward see is farming, carbon capture through enhanced techniques of soil, things like agroforestry, regenerative farming, okay, livestock management, so as to enhance carbon capture and such kind of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff available on the net. I just wanted to share this opinions, these ideas with you. That's it, Kathy.
Michelle, you are an example of what CCL is all about. I know we're super focused on lobbying for carbon pricing, but you see the bigger picture and make the connections. Every one of us does that, and you perfectly exemplified that right now. So thank you for sharing that. It was wonderful. There, so our mission, our one and only rule, and we're standing for a livable world. We see the big picture. Our focus is carbon pricing. Yes, that's just to save us time. Because if we focus on everything, we'll run out of time. And many of us belong to other organizations and have other initiatives, and we learn to balance them. But at Citizens Climate, we do focus on carbon pricing. If it makes sense for our country, it doesn't always make sense. Maybe there's like banking issues or other policies that will be needed first. For the most part, people do focus on carbon pricing though. Integrity, we do our research and we see the connections to everything. We are stubbornly optimistic. We believe that humans are good, and we just keep fighting, saying it again and again and again. We embrace diversity, and this call right now is an example of that. And I'm really feeling it. It's awesome. We welcome everyone. We are driven by personal power. I cannot begin to tell you how powerful each one of you are when you speak truth to power with love in your heart. Relationships is at the very core of what we do. It's developing a trusting relationships with our communities, with our politicians, with each other. This is what moves us. And we are truly nonpartisan. And we do our work by leveraging what are called the CCL levers of political will. This was the first group I ever trained in Africa. Wonderful women in Madagascar. So I just wanted to share that. So we have the levers of political will. Yes, our original name is Citizens Climate Lobby. Yes, we lobby. We build relationships with politicians. We advocate. We get information up to politicians. Every country will use a different verb. In some countries, they can't say lobby. They can't say advocate. They have to say influence, okay? But for now, we'll just use the word lobby. And yeah, we advocate in support of our proposal, and basically we're building friendly relationships with politicians so they can trust us. We work with media so that the politicians know that we're building political will, so that if they go to do something, they won't be in trouble with the people and the media. And we engage and influence the media. We write letters to the editor, op-eds, we meet with editorial boards, and we also work to place stories in all forms of media, social media, etc. And we keep in mind our core values when we do that. We also reach out to our community. So again, the politician knows they have support back home. Grassroots is, where it has to happen. If there's no support at the bottom, then not much can happen at the top in a democracy. So we write our representatives, we table, which means we go out to events, have our information on a table, and we hand that information out from that table. We do presentations where we educate, persuade, and build goodwill. And we also do art. That's part of it. And this is a parachute for the planet, which is an organization that we work with from Zimbabwe. And it shows all the SDGs. And they made that from scratch. Isn't that beautiful? And they bring it out to communities, and the children play with it, and the politicians run to get their pictures taken with it. I'm telling you, these things are politician magnets. And then we do what are called Grasstops engagement. So we educate and build partnerships with leaders in our community, whether that be religious leaders, business leaders, influencers of any kind. And we just want to gain the support of these leaders and non-governmental organizations so we can build the broadest base possible and show that we're not alone. And lastly, we do group development. And we grow our groups, and we manage our volunteers, and we support their efforts around building political will by pulling on the 4 other levers. And this is a picture of your colleagues in Uganda at a group meeting under a tree. It was so cool. And they decided that they were all going to write a letter to the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition and send it to their government to join the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition. This is that meeting when they decided to do that. So in conclusion, if you bucket how you're working into these 5 buckets, it's a lot more manageable. And some people will like to work in media, so you put them in that team. Some people like to lobby. Others like to engage with endorsers, and others like to build political will at the grassroots level. And some people like to make the cookies for the meetings and get all that stuff ready. So if you think of your team like that, it's a lot easier. And then we have monthly meetings. Really critical to meet regularly. That's key. Canada has been meeting regularly every month since September 2010. We've never missed a month. Not 1 month. And we meet about 5 times a month, starting in about November 2011. Never miss a month, except for we kind of slow down in the summer and only meet 3 times a month. And future training, if you stick around with us, we will teach you that being a citizen lobbyist is very different than being a professional lobbyist, and what that means and how powerful that is. We teach you about motivational interviewing, where you use these techniques to find out where the barriers are with your with politicians on enacting policies. It's very powerful stuff. And we teach you how to design a meeting. So how to give everybody a role. And they're all listed here, and I'm not going to go through them. And then how to outline a meeting. Which is, you have a beginning where you thank the politician. You ask how much time you have. Everybody introduces themselves. Depending on how much time you have, you keep your introductions at an appropriate length. You truly appreciate something that the politician has done that is critical, that makes them feel good. And then you state where you're there for, our purpose and our ask. And then you have a discussion and you exchange ideas and you're looking for values and you want to move them forward. And a lot of that is the motivational interviewing. And then as you're ending, you're clarifying what exactly was said and you plan for follow-up. And you take a photo because politicians love getting photos and it being posted on social media for the most part. And you thank them for their time. And you will know you're successful if you get a second meeting. Not if you convince them. No, that's going to take a long time unless they're already, there, You get the second meeting, you have won. I just wanted to say one of our volunteers met with his member of parliament here in Canada for the first time. He's a conservative. We had a wonderful meeting. And at the end of it, the conservative member of parliament of high stature said to our volunteer, when this COVID pandemic is over, I'm going to take you out for lunch. Yeah, he scored. Okay, so before I do the last slide, are there any questions or comments you want to say before we start wrapping up, just about being a CCL and how we do things?
Can I say something?
I would love that.
Yeah, so the reason at the beginning I said that I love how CCL does thing and how they have been doing things. I would just like to elaborate it while going through your slides. I just like to say everyone that, being in this field where I could have worked with different organizations, and after doing my master's and going through my master's, I've realized that if I have to work in this area where I'm interested, lobbying for other environmental issues and all different types of political issues going around the world, what I really like about coming to CCL's meeting is that it's very positive and it brings me back to where I can trust humanity again, and where I can be positive again, and where I can have hope again, So that's what I wanted to say. And I think that's why we should stick to it as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was beautiful. Anyone else?
So Kathy, you said we are having a series of these information meetings, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So do we have more such for the Southeast Asian teams as well?
Yep. Every Wednesday at this time is specifically designated for Southeast Asia. Is this a good time? Because we struggled over deciding the best time, but it's too late now. But if we do this in the future, we'll reconsider it.
I think it's a good time, and the people who could not attend today for some reason would probably be on board next week or the one after that.
Wonderful. Yes, this is a really good one for Southeast Asia. The one later at 8 p.m. my time tonight is too late, and I even think the one in 2 hours is getting too late. So, yeah. Anyone else? Well, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. I feel really lucky to know all of you. It's a great call. Thank you. Shukriya.
Thank you,
Shukriya.
Kathy.
Thank you.
Do you have another meeting straight on after this, Kathy?